Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon to all of you. We hope you are all safe and sound and taking the necessary precautions in these times. So, on behalf of CISA, we welcome you all to the webinar for Software Security Framework, a new chapter in payment security applications. Well, I'm Bharat Malik. I work on business development team here at CISA and will be moderating this session today. So, coming to the quick facts about CISA, over the decade, with the expertise in payment security domain, we have been marked as a trusted security partner. We have a robust security posture, which is definitely possible with CISA's exceptional set of services. Like, for example, we are an approved global payment forensic investigator and have resolved some of the highly complex cases as well. And we are one of the world's 20 organization to join PCI GARE committee. CISA Tipper, which is a data finder tool. I didn't say card finder tool because it has several other features to scan, such as card data, Aadhaar data, PIA data, etc. So this tool is appreciated by most of the big guns of the industry, typically from banking, insurance, and payment service providers. So here comes the question that why we are doing this webinar. So first and foremost reason is CISA cares to share such information with its partners and other business affiliates, which is primarily via newsletters, webinars, white papers, etc. So I would highly urge to the audience today to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn to get the first hand updates on the same. Also, the second reason is because of the fact that with the rapid increase in digital payments and constantly evolving software development processes, methods to secure payment application must also develop. PCI SSC has introduced PCI software security framework with strict eligibility criteria to comply. SSF is the replacement for PADSS. Here comes the question again that are we really prepared for the transition? Or how can SSF benefit you as an individual and your payment application software? So overall, in this webinar, we are going to cover scope of PCI SSF, what are the respective criteria to comply, its transition timelines, and compliance procedures for PCI SSF. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Asha Jennifer, who is a senior consultant at CISA with more than 6 years of experience as software security assessor. She's also a lead and authorized trainer for CPSID training. For those of you who might not know what a CPSID training is, it's a certified payment card industry security implementers for the developers. It majorly focused on helping the application developers and architects on developing a secure payment application. Asha has conducted PADSS assessments and PCI PIN assessments for more than 30 applications. Besides her technical expertise, Asha loves reading books and she has a good collection of paperbacks in a variety of genres. Before I hand over the platform to Asha, I have a few housekeeping items to cover about the webinar platform. This session is of 30 minutes and 15 minutes will be for the Q&A. So overall 45 minutes is the timeline for this session. All the attendees will be muted automatically to have a smooth flow of the presentation. Please submit your question that arise during the webinar through Q&A section located below your screen. This webinar will be recorded and uploaded in webinar section of the CISA website. So without any further delay, I'd like to get things off kick-started by welcoming Asha Jennifer to take over the platform. Asha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Bharat, for the introduction. Hello, team. Good morning and good afternoon to you all from wherever you're joining from different parts of the world. I hope you are all safe and you're keeping your families safe as well during the current times. Coming back to the agenda for the discussion, so today we will be introducing you to the new standard which is introduced by PCI SSC called SSF or Software Security Framework. And we're also going to discuss that how it is going to change the perception or how the assessment of the application is going to change. because this standard is going to replace a PADSS standard. So currently PADSS 3.2 is used for the assessment of the application. So how exactly the new standard will replace the PADSS, and what is the intention behind the introduction of the new standard, and how exactly the timeline, so the transition timelines is going to be focused by the PCI-SSC is also going to be discussed today. So this is the agenda for today's discussion, and you can also post your questions in the question session. So we can take up all the questions during the session that is allocated for the question. Okay. So here is a small survey of the attacks that have happened recently. So you can see a graph that is displaying most of the web application related vulnerabilities, starting from buffer overflow and the injections. So the attacks are always on the increasing side because of the number of applications that you are using. So in the earlier days, the applications that we are using were only limited. But right now, for each and everything, we are using an application. So that increased the attack vector for the application, that around 25% of the attacks are because of the application flaws. While there are other reasons for the breaches like the malware, the phishing related vulnerabilities, etc. But 25% of the breaches have happened due to the weakness in the application. So here is the payment fraud evolution. So in the earlier days, during the inception of the credit cards, the frauds were related to the stolen cards because there will be one person called attacker, and he will be trying to steal the card, and he will be using it for various other purposes. And later, the attack or the attack became sophisticated, that they started skimming the cards. The skimming, as in the skimmers were introduced in the ATM machine, or even a card was skimmed at various outlets where you are presenting your card for the usage. And then right now we are in the state where there are malwares being used to attack an application. So the recent one here is an ATM cash out. So this malware is targeted to attack the switch application, wherein it will modify the DLL files of the switch application, to carry out the attacks going forward. So that is the evolution of the payment frauds, that the attackers are being increasing technologies and increasing the methods of attacks, and so there is a need for the standards also to evolve to countermeasure these kind of attacks. So here is the standard evolution. So basically, in the earlier days, the standard that was used for the assessment of payment application was used by Visa, called Payment Application Best Practices, or PABP, which was introduced in 2008. And then the standard was handed over to PCI SSC, so who is managing the standard right now. So the standard was PADSS at the version 1.2.1 in October 2009. And whenever there was a need to update the standard based on the technologies that are used for the payment, the standards have been evolved. Then it came the 2.0 version, then the 3.0. During the introduction of SSL vulnerabilities, the standard was upgraded to address those vulnerabilities. And then came the need for multi-factor authentication. Then again, the standard was updated to the current version 3.2. And right now we are in the phase where PADSS is going to be shut down, and there is going to be a new standard which will replace PADSS, which is SSF, or Software Security Framework. We will discuss what is the need for the software security framework, because there might be a question that why not PADSS 3.3 or PADSS 4.0 in that matter, and why is the need for the new standard itself have come up. So here is the difference between PADSS and SSF. So, as an assessor, most of the time we get questions from the customers with respect to the application, stating that whether their application will be eligible or not. But very few cases that the application will be eligible, because PADSS had a very stringent eligibility criteria. because it accepts only the applications which are going to take part in authorization and or settlement. So that is a strict eligibility criteria that is set by PCI SSC for the listing of PADSs. So many applications will not fall under the scope of PADSs, but still, those applications may handle cardholder data at various steps, such as the card issuance application or the fraud monitoring application, which plays a crucial role in the payments, but they don't meet the eligibility criteria which was set by PADSs. So this was addressed in the secure software framework, where the eligibility criteria is modified, so that it can cover the broader level of the application. The eligibility states that the application that are involved in or directly supporting or facilitating payment transactions. So, this has opened the door for the multiple applications to pass through the application security. And you can also see that the PADS's requirement is in 14 requirements, which is like an one size fit all requirements. Or any kind of application, if they are eligible, they have to go through those 14 set of requirements. But in the SSF, they are more like an object based approach, and they also have separated module wise. So basically, if the functionality of application is of certain kind, then they have to undergo a particular module based assessment. So they need not undergo a different, that is, they don't have to undergo the entire requirement testing. That is, they have to undergo the testing which is based on the application functionality, based on the module that was allocated for that particular functionality of the application. So this is a small assumption based on the eligibility. By seeing the eligibility criteria, there are multiple applications which may be eligible for SSF, which was not eligible for PADSs. So one of them is a fraud monitoring solution, which may fall under the category of SSF, and they can get themselves listed for the SSF, and the card personalization and the card issuance application. So as a standalone card issuance application, they may not be eligible for PADSs. So every time they have to combine it with the gateway module or the switch module to get the application listed as per PADSs. But right now, based on the eligibility criteria of SSF, the card personalization and the card issuance application can be eligible for the listing as per the SSF. But still, the mobile applications are not eligible according to the standard eligibility that is set for today. But we are constantly working with PCI SSC to improve and to give our feedbacks based on the industry. So they are working on it, the eligibility criteria and the different modules, so that in the later days, we can expect the mobile application also to undergo mobile application assessment. But at this point, the mobile applications are not eligible, but we can surely expect that in the future. There are multiple requirement as per SSF. So SSF is a framework called Software Security Framework, and under this framework there are two auditable standards. The SSF itself is not an auditable standard, it's just a framework for the application or a software security. So under the SSF there are two auditable standards, which is called S3 or Secure Software Standard, and the other standard is Secure Software Lifecycle, in short, Secure SLC. So these two standards are the auditable standards that will be used for the assessment of different customers. So we will also look, see the difference between them and on whom this standards will be applicable in detail. So you can see that there was a new standard which was Secure SLC and S3. While S3 is more similar to PADSs because the applications can be listed as part of S3. But Secure SLC is more focused on the application development lifecycle. So why exactly they need a new standard, to assess the development lifecycle, and why it cannot be covered as part of S3? So here's a survey. So out of the survey, only 36% of developers said that the security of the application is their top concern, and they follow all the security guidelines during the development. While 52% of the developers, said that the security testing is delaying the development procedures and the deadlines to meet the application release. While 24% of the developers said that they do not have control over the security of the application because they are given a requirement and they have to work on it, while security was not part of it, and they do not have the authority to place security in the life cycle of the application development. So this is the gap that we have currently in the application development, where we all have the standard, and there is an application development which is going on, but the only thing is there's no bridge between the standard and the application of the standard. So hence they came up with a new standard called Secure SLC. So under which all the application vendors can verify if their life cycle, that is the software development life cycle, or according to the standard. So for example, let's say CISA is a software vendor, and CISA has one application which is meeting the eligibility criteria. So here CISA can list themselves as a secure SLC vendor for their development practices, while CISA can also list their application if they are eligible as per the S3 requirements. So both can go hand in hand together, so that both the development practices is compliant and the application that was developed by the vendor is also compliant. So here's the difference between the S3 and the SSLC based on the eligibility. Secure software standard is aimed at the software or the application basically. So that is an application which is meeting the eligibility criteria can undergo the S3 assessment and get themselves listed in the PCI website. So the listing will be for the application, while the software vendor's name will be also mentioned in the listing. And here the eligibility criteria is that the application or a software that are facilitating and taking part in the transaction. So that is the eligibility criteria, and any application that is meeting this eligibility criteria can go for the AS3 listing. So which is also more similar for PADSs. So wherein the application will be assessed, and the assessor will have to conduct all the test cases, and they will evaluate the application, and they will also on behalf of the customer, they will support in getting the application listed in the PCI SSE website. And they also have 4 security objective plus 12 control objective and a module A. So this 12 control objective is called the core requirements. So any application that are eligible for the S3 standard will have to meet the 12 core requirements or 12 control objectives, while module A is specifically for the application that are taking the clear text account data. So only if an application is taking the clear text account data, then a module A will be applicable. So module B is currently under draft by PCI SSE, which is targeted for the resident application or the terminal based application. Here is where I mentioned the S3 is going to follow the objective-based approach. So only the application that takes clear text card data will have to take up module A assessment, while when the module B is released, so only the terminal application or the resident application will have to undergo module B, while the 12 control objectives will have to be taken by all the applications. So this is how PCI-SSE has drafted the new standard, so that they can, whenever there is a need for a different functionality of the application, they can create a new module to cover that application into the scope. So next is a new standard called Secure SLC. So Secure SLC is aimed at the software development vendor. So this is not specifically for an app, a particular application. So this is basically for the software vendor. If a software vendor is developing 10 applications, so a software vendor can assess their life cycle, that is the software development life cycle, and themselves can be listed as a secure SLC vendor. So in the listing, you can see that the vendor name is mentioned rather than the application name. But you can also see the type of application mentioned, but there will not be an application that will be mentioned as part of the secure SLC. So instead, only the software development vendor will be mentioned as part of the secure SLC. And the eligibility criteria for secure SLC is that it's applicable for all vendors who are developing the payment software. So they do not categorize what kind of application need to be developed, but they said any vendors who are developing the payment related software. So they can undergo the secure SLC. So there might be applications which are not eligible for S3, but the software vendor can evaluate their SDLC process and get themselves listed for secure SLC. And under secure SLC, there are 4 security objectives with 10 control objectives. So this is basically the difference between S3 and the secure SLC based on the eligibility criteria. So now might be a question. So why exactly I need to get validated for 2 different standards, and what is the additional benefits that I'm going to get if I list as part of the 2 listing, which is your application can go for S3 and a software vendor can list for secure SLC. So the benefit that you're going to get is that as a software vendor, yourself can do the delta assessment. So, most of the time, once the application is listed, the validity of the listing is for 3 years. So, in this 3 years, there might be multiple application changes that are going to take place. And these changes can vary from low impacting, no impacting, or a high impacting change. So the standard allows you, that is the software vendor, to conduct the low impacting and no impacting and the administrator change themselves rather than going to the assessor. So for example, you need not come to CISA if you are having any low impacting change. So you can directly approach PCI SSC and get the listing updated by yourself conducting the delta assessment. And you can do this only if you are listed for both. So that is, your application is listed for S3, and as a vendor practices, you are listed as part of secure SLC vendor. So if you are listed as both, then you get the privilege of doing the delta assessment yourself for all the no impacting or a high impacting or even the administrator change. You do not need the assessor to support or to submit the documents on behalf of you to PCI SSC. You can directly do the delta assessment and submit the documents to PCI SSC. So this is one of the benefits that you will get if you go for the listing as part of S3 and the secure SLC. So here's the transition timeline that is provided by PCI SSC. So PADSS currently is in version 3.2, and the listing is set to expire. That is, any application that are listed for 3.2 is set to expire in October 2022. And the standard or the PADSS 3.2 listing will be valid only until October 2022. So post that, the applications will be moved to expired state. Okay, and the PCICC will accept the new application listing for PADSS only until June 2021. So post June 2021, we will not be able to submit any new application for the listing. While the listing for SSF is already started from June 2020, so we are already open for taking the applications for SSF listing as PCISSC opened it on June 2020. So here's a timeline that you need to remember. Because once the PADSS 3.2 is expired, the application will be also marked as expired in the listing. So then you have to move yourself or upgrade yourself for the SSF. So basically, you can choose whether secure SLC or a S3, which is most applicable to you, or you can also go for both depending on the applications that you are going to develop. So here's the higher level of secure software standard objectives, or the S3 objectives. I will not be going into detail of them. I'll just give you a brief on the control objectives and the module A requirements and their intention behind the control objectives. So the first is the minimizing attack surface. The intention behind this particular control objective is most of the time the attackers are trying only to compromise the asset. So the asset here it could be anything. So in the PADSS, the asset was always a PAN or a sensitive authentication data. But here in the S3 standard, it is up to the vendor to determine what a critical asset could be. It could be a key, or it could be a password, or it could be an initialization vector, that is IVE, to generate a random key. So any data that an entity is trying to protect or considers it as sensitive data can be categorized as a critical asset. So that is, they have to protect those critical assets, and how exactly those data need to be protected. And the standard also recommends you to change all the secure defaults and the sensitive data retention. So the primary motive of the attacker is to take the sensitive data from the organization. So if the retention period is kept only to a minimum or only until it is required, so then the attack surface is going to be lower. Because in India, the RBI, according to the RBI, you have to maintain the cardholder data for 7 years. But most of the time during the assessment, we see that the card numbers are stored from the time of inception of card until date. So which is far exceeding the regulatory requirement. So you can keep a retention period which is consideration of all the regulatory requirement and the standard requirements, and keep it to a minimum possible. So that way the attack surface is going to be reduced. So the next control objective is software protection mechanism. So how to protect the sensitive data that was determined as a critical asset. And the one way of protecting is through access control, because you're going to restrict the access to the critical asset that you already have. So it could be in the files, or it could be in the database, it could be anywhere. So how exactly you are limiting the access control, that is to prevent access to that particular data. And you can also use cryptography to protect the sensitive data. There are multiple requirements that are provided by the standard. So based on the current date, so there are certain algorithms that are permitted by the standard which you can use. So all of them will be covered as part of the software protection mechanisms. And the next control objective is secure software operations. So whenever a system is in operation, so logging is something that is very important to track the application or user behavior, or to maintain the accountability. So what are the data that need to be logged? So both application related user and the system level details. So what are the things that need to be logged, so that even if something is going wrong, how exactly you can map it to a person or a system which is compromised during the attack. And the next requirement is secure software lifecycle management. So this is basically on the SDLC process. So basically the change management procedure, the vulnerability management procedure, the patch management, and how exactly do you need to provide guidance to your customer in deploying the application and maintain the security of application. So this marks the 4 control objectives. And then you have the module A, and module A is applicable to the entity only if they are taking clear text account data. So the account data could be a sensitive authentication data and a card holder data. So you can see two sensitive here. So one being the sensitive data, and the other being the sensitive authentication data. So sensitive data could be any data which an entity is trying to protect. As I mentioned, it could be a database connection string or a registry value, which could be a sensitive data. But a sensitive authentication data is the track data, pin block, CVV that is going to come under the category of sensitive authentication data. And the next control objective is how do you have to protect the card holder data, so which is PAN. So the standard also provides you some of the mechanisms to protect the card holder data. So how exactly or which method you can use to protect the card holder data. So next is the secure SLC objectives. The complete objective is based on the SDLC process that you will have to follow. So starting from the responsibility matrix and the senior management involvement in the application development. So whenever there is a policy or a strategy change, then a senior management need to be notified of the change that is going to happen in the application. And then comes the secure software engineering. So wherein you will have to monitor the third party libraries and all the application components against the threat and the vulnerability. Then comes the secure software and data management. So under here, you will the standard is intending you to look after the change management process, software integrity. So most of the time, the integrity is always considered during the operation time, but most of the time, the integrity during the development is not considered. So the standard requires you to consider integrity during the development process as well. And then comes the security communication. So most of the time, communication is something that is not bi-directional when it comes to the software vendor and the application user, that is whoever is purchasing the application. So the standard requires the communication to be bi-directional. So whenever there is that is the vendor determined that there may be a vulnerability in the application, then the vendor will have to notify it to the customer who has purchased the application. And whenever the user of the application determines that the security configuration, he may need more information about the security configuration, so he may reach out to the software vendor to get more details. So the communication plays a crucial role in the software development lifecycle. So wherein here the developers also need to be trained based on the secure development. So just a gist about secure SLC is the standard requires the vendor to consider security in all phases of the application development. So most of the time, there's a phase called security testing, so wherein the penetration testing will be conducted. So that is the only phase where security is considered. But the standard requires you to consider security in the complete or the entire process of SDLC, starting from the requirement definition to the maintenance phase, along with the deployment and the maintenance phase. So that is the intention behind the introduction of secure SLC. Okay. So here's the benefits that you are going to get as part of the SSF framework. So firstly, it's a new approach for the modern application, because in the earlier days, how we use the application or the payment was entirely different what we are currently using now. So most currently we are moving towards the NFC, where we are the no card transaction is currently used. The framework is targeting, or the intention of the framework is to address the newer evolution of payment methods. And the standard also promotes education to the developers or anybody in that matter who is going to take part in the software development lifecycle. So starting from the architect who are designing the application, to the developer, to the code reviewer, and the deployment team who is going to support in the deployment. So all of them need to be aware of the secure development procedures, so that security can be incorporated in all the phases of application development. And the support or the framework, the intention of the framework is also to support the development process and methodology. Though there are multiple development methods or the methodology that are available, most of the time they are not considered during the development process. So you can see that there are multiple coding guidelines and the review guidelines which are available by OWASP or NIST, but only thing is they are not applied to the application development process. So here the standard is opening or bridging this gap, so that you can use the industry standard to the application to make your application more secure, to safeguard everyone else's payment. And the other benefit that you're going to get is the delta assessment, which an S3 assessor can do it on their application if they are certified for secure SLC. So these are the some of the framework benefits. So now, not mentioning that the intention is also to protect all our payment data. So here are some of the CISA offerings that we are going to provide as part of the SSF. So first is the validation as per the S3 or Secure Software Standard, and we can also validate as per the Secure SLC. And the other support which you will get will be the Delta assessment. So if you are certified for both, that is the S3 and the Secure SLC, and the Delta assessment support. So we can also provide that kind of support if you are targeting to do the Delta assessment yourself. And the standard also requires training to be conducted to different teams, that is the developers on the coding, the reviewers on the code review, and the entire development team should be aware that the security need to be incorporated and the awareness should be developed within the team. So we can also provide those kind of trainings and awareness session to the team. And you can also see that CISA is listed in the website, so wherein we can conduct both Secure SLC assessment and the S3 assessment. Okay, so here's the bonus information. So the today's webinar, we are more focusing on the introduction only. So we are also going to come up with a new, the next session wherein we are going to discuss in detail on what is the change required in the application. That is, if an entity is PADSS certified and you are willing to go for S3 standard, so what exactly do you need to take care of or need to change in the application before applying for S3. So we have just provided a sample of one change here. So just to give you an introduction, but we also have the next session, which is planned in the coming days to discuss on the details of all the change that are required in the application and the development practices. Here is one change. So where the PAN protection as per PADSS. So there are four methods which the standard or the PADSS recommends for the protection of PAN. So which is encryption, truncation, tokenization, and hashing. So these are the four methods that are permitted by the standard for the protection of PAN. But in the under S3, they allows only three methods, which is encryption, truncation, and tokenization. So these are the three methods that are permitted by S3 for the protection of PAN. So this is one major change which you may all have to think about if you are using that method in your application. This is the change that you will have to start working with your architects because it is one of the major change. So having said that, this is just one change which I am highlighting here, but there are other change which you also need to take care of before you move to the S3 standard. That is when you are migrating from PADSS to S3. So please join us in our next session as well. So wherein we will highlight all the changes that you need to take care of during the migration from PADSS to S3. So we are now open for questions. We can take up the questions now. So you can also post your questions in the question bar.
So yeah, we've been getting a fantastic questions. The first questions that we have got is from Mr. Bipul Kumar De. So the question is, if I want to store a key into an application and the key generated by HSM system, though will be used for data encryption, then what is the best way to store a key into application, including dual control authentication to change the key from application level?
Okay. Thank you, Bharat. So this question can be answered in two ways. So firstly, we will see about the HSM-based encryption. So if you are using a HSM-based encryption, so probably you will be using the LMK for encrypting the data, right? So which is more considered to be more protected when you are using a hardware level encryption. So you can just use an LMK to protect your cardholder data, and LMK will be only in the HSM. So there's nothing to worry about if you are using the LMK to protect the data using the HSM. Now, coming to the application-based encryption, so if you are using the application level encryption, the standard requires you to use two level of keys. So that is the data encryption key and the key encryption key. So the data encryption key will encrypt the PAN, and the key encryption key will protect the data encryption key. So there are two level of keys that are required to protect the PAN. And there is also one more method which you highlighted, which is dual control. So you can store keys in that is, you need not always have two level of keys. So for an the you can also follow another method. It's called manual clear text key management process. So wherein you will have two components of keys. So it's not actual key, it's the two component of the keys. So let's say component one and you have a component two, and let's say you are also using AES 256 bit key. So component one should be an AES 256 key, and component two should be an AES 256 key, and both the keys can undergo a function to give a final key, and this key can be used in the encryption. So here the storage, you can store the two key components in your application, which will meet the dual control and split knowledge requirements. And whenever an encryption is required, you can combine this key to form the final key, and you can use it for encryption and decryption. So these are the three methods that can be used for the protection of PAN.
Thank you so much, Asha, for the wonderful explanation. So we have got another question from Mr. Bhushan Thakur. So his question is the RBI 7-year norm for card storage also for processors and service providers?
Yes. The RBI guidelines, which is in India, is for every entity, that is any transaction should be kept for 7 years.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have a question from Abhishek Gupta. So he's asking is SSS have objective which are secure software lifecycle management already. So is it still required to go for SSLC? Can't this qualifies for SSLC also?
Sure, that's a wonderful question which I'm expecting. As per the standard, if you get certified for S3, it means only the application will be listed. But let's say your the company that you are representing, let's say you have 10 applications, and you see that only 2 applications are eligible for PADSS. So I'm sorry, the S3 application. So then you will go for the listing of 2 applications. So now what about the 8 applications which are not eligible? Right? So to make the application development practices, to be more sophisticated, that is, if you follow a good development life cycle, then the outcome will be also secure. So that is the intention behind the introduction of new 2 different standards to cover the application that are not eligible for the S3 standard as well.
Awesome. So we've got a question from Mr. Bipul Kumar De. So he's asking how SLC come in a picture for the bank application development. Please give some real life example for the same.
Sure. So when you say bank application, it could be either an in-house developed application or it could be a purchased application. That is the third-party application. So if you're using an in-house developed application, then this can be covered as part of your PCI DSS because it is an in-house developed application for use of that particular bank only. So in that case, you will not need to go for S3 because the another eligibility criteria for S3 is also that the application should be sold off the shelf to multiple customers. So, but you can surely go for the secure SLC because the secure SLC framework is for any entity who are developing the payment software. So you can surely go for the secure SLC method.
Thanks a lot, Asha, for the same. So we've got a question from Mr. Abu Saeed Malik. His question is: we have a web-based application, and we're not accepting any clear PAN text. Which certification is required for the same?
Okay. So here we may need to understand more about the application functionality. You highlighted that it's a web application. I'm not sure what is the functionality of the application because you also mentioned that there's no card. So if you can provide more details of the application functionality, we can help you whether the application will be eligible or not.
So, Mr. Abu sir, probably if you want to have a more clarification in this regard, probably we can connect after this webinar We'll be much more happy to assist you. Another question is from Mr. Nitin Furia. So his question is S3 does not allow hashing for the PAN. So if we have to do the search, the hashing was mainly used. So what is the alternative?
Yes. So here you can use either the truncated PAN or you can use the encrypted PAN for the same. So right now we are also in discussion with PCI SSC highlighting the difficulty that the customer is going to face because of this change. So they can also come up with a new version which will allow hashing, but at this point we have to choose only within the three methods.
Awesome. So we have got a question from Mr. Satish Kumar Sekar. His question is if any organization is not certified their application for S3, what is the benefit of qualifying as SSLC?
Sure, that's a good question. Let's say your the entity that you are representing is qualified for secure SLC. That means the development life cycle that you are following is secure, and you can also project it to your customers that the application that you have developed has followed the certified model. For which you are also listed for in the PCI portal, and you can also highlight that maybe because the application is not eligible for S3, and that doesn't mean you did not consider security, but you have considered the security in all the phases of the application development, and you're also following the secure SLC standard.
Next question we have got from Mr. Sridhar. So his question is either S3 or secure SLC, which is applicable for an ATM application?
Okay. So you mentioned application. So when it is an application, it is always S3, because only S3 will focus on the application, while secure SLC is more focused on the vendor, specifically the software development vendor.
Awesome. We got a question from Ms. Neelam Chugwani. So her question is in secure SLC, bidirectional communication is included in its objective. So why is it actually required the communication between vendor and the end user?
Okay. So the end user here is not the users of the application or the end consumers, but whoever is purchasing the application. So let's say CISA is developing an application and it is sold to one bank. Bank's customer, that is, will not be under the scope. Instead, the bank and the CISA will have to be bi-directional, so that I can, that is, the CISA can provide them guidance on the new vulnerabilities, on how they can keep the application strong against the new vulnerabilities. And as a bank, they can also reach me for a secure configuration and the details about the new changes in the application. But here, the end user of the bank is not going to be in the scope.
Thank you, Asha, for the detailed explanation. Mr. Omkar Gaikwad is asking if a vendor is SLC certified, do he require to get his software S3 certified too?
Okay, so that's not mandatory. That is an application that is if you take one vendor, they have to get certified for both the secure SLC and the S3. But it is an option that is provided by the council. But the benefit is that you can do the Delta assessment yourself without having to pay any cost to PCI SSC. While that is the benefit, but it is not mandatory that you have to undergo both.
So next question is from Umesh Hirat. So I guess this is already covered in the presentation, but I'm just reiterating once again. So the question is, where can we find these software development vendors listed as certified secure developers?
Could you please read that out, Bharat? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So the question is, where can we find these software development vendors listed as certified secure developers?
Okay, so your question is basically on where you can see the software development vendors listed. So you can see it in the PCI website, but until today morning, there was no customer who was listed for secure SLC because they opened the application only from June 2020. So I suppose they are still under the assessment phase and they are not yet listed. But once an application vendor is listed, you can see it in the PCI website under approved software vendors.
Mr. Bhushan Thakur has a question. He's asking, when is SSLC going to come in force?
Okay, so it's already in force because we can start the assessment from June 2020 now. So it's already in force, wherein you can also apply for secure SLC listing.
Next question is from Roshni Gauri Shankar. She's asking, why is hashing excluded in SSF? Is it a revamp?
Yeah, so based on the industry experts' feedback, the council has removed hashing because most of the time they found that hashed and truncated values are stored together, which can cause the correlation between the PAN numbers. So that was highlighted by multiple industry experts, and hence this was removed. But as an assessor, we are also discussing the same with council.
Awesome. So we've got a next question from Mr. Raghavendran. This question is it mandatory to certify for S3 even if the organization certified for PCI DSS?
No, so the standards from the PCI SSC are never mandatory, but only if a payment brand asks you to undergo that particular compliance, you may have to take up, but it's not mandatory.
Okay. We have the next question from Bharat Setan. So his question is there any mechanism to verify OAS SANS Top 25 the application must comply with since mandated by RBI? In case if it is purchased the application, attestation receipt from the application vendor is compliant or not?
Yep. So one way on how to assure that the application is following the OWASP methods is that you can request for the a test report from the vendor before you purchase the application.
Okay. Mr. Saju Joseph has a question. In PADSS or SSF, that encrypted data and encryption key have to be stored in different databases?
Yeah, so the standard mentions two different places. They don't mention two different databases, but it will mention in two different locations. So it's recommended. So we as an assessor recommend to store one key in database and the other key in maybe a file, etc. So that way it will be in two different locations.
Okay. Mr. Shanmukha Rao has a question. As you provided one example for the major change, can you please give a percentage of these type of major changes that came into SSF?
Okay, so percentage, I can say 30% of changes. Bharat, can we move on to next question?
Yeah, sure. We have a question from Mr. Satish. His question is, if any organization qualified for SSLC, do they eligible to apply for low impact changes for the entity?
No, so as an entity, you will not be able to apply. So what you can do is you can apply for the S3 application. So let's say your application is listed for S3 and you yourself is listed for secure SLC. So that way you can, as a SLC vendor, you can do a delta assessment for the S3 application, but not for the secure SLC itself. Bharat, can we move on to next question, please?
Yeah, next question is from Amila Pereira. So the question is, even though the hashing is not allowed in S3, can it be used the pan masking in the logs in etc.?
Yes, surely. So the standard allows you to use masking, so maybe for the display, for the screens or the reports, you can still use masking.
Okay. So the question which has been asked by Mr. Abu Saeed, so you were asking about the nature of the application. So Abu Saeed has replied, stating that it's a payment application.
Okay, so if it's a payment application, then you can go for S3 listing for the application. But if you also think that your development process, that is, you also develop other applications and you also want all the applications to be secure, you, as an entity, you can apply for secure SLC.
So meanwhile, we have got further more questions. So the first question is, when will PCI SSC stop accepting any new application for PADSS listing?
Okay, so the new listing will be stopped in June 2021. So until then, we can submit new applications, but post June 2021, we will not be able to submit any new applications.
So the next fantastic question that we have is, when is the right time to start transition from PADSS to SSF?
I would say right now, because you can see only very few, as of now, there is no customers who are listed for SSF, because we see that all the assessments are currently under progress only. So now is the right time to start, because there might be some changes that is required, that you may need to take it up in the application and the development process. So if you can start now, then now it will be a good time for you to get listed in the website. So you will be one of the very few members who are listed as per the SSL.
Okay. So how do we know whether we need secure software standard or secure SLC standard?
Okay. So as I mentioned, the S3 standard is for the application. So if you want to list your application, then it is S3. If you want to list you yourself as a development vendor, then you have to go for secure SLC. So those the two standards are
Awesome.
two different things.
So the last question that we have received is CISA listed with PCI SSC as a software security assessor?
I'm sorry, could you please come again?
Is CISA listed as soft approved security assessor?
Yeah, so CISA is listed as both as S3 assessors and secure SLC assessors. So we can do both the assessments.
Okay. So I guess we are just left with 3 minutes. So we have got two or three questions. Question is from Benoit Joseph. So what is the process for certifying from PADSS to S3?
Okay, so the process is that we it's like the usual process that we will have to follow. So you please reach us separately. So we will give you all the details that need to be that can be used. So firstly, we will need the scope form to be fulfilled, and the business will come into play to give you the SOW, and then we will be able to talk further. So we can also conduct an awareness session on what are the changes that is required in the application and the process. And from there, we will be able to take it forward until the listing.
Fantastic. So, audience, if you could please spare 10 seconds and do the polling. The screen is visible at your end as well. So, this will help us to improvise further. So we're just stopping here for 10 seconds. So, if you have any other questions or need any clarification from our side, so you can reach out to us via our website or any of, we have shared our email IDs with you. So we would be much more happy to assist you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Asha. Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you, Divya. Have a good day ahead.